Hi, now I'm going to give you a few tips for extracting diagnostic accuracy statistics for meta-analyses in SRDR. Here I've got open an article from a diagnostic accuracy project. And what I want to focus on is, now I'm not going to do a complete walkthrough. There are great training resources on the SRDR website, but I want to show you, focus on three tabs. One is the diagnostic tests, the outcomes tab, and finally the results tab. Now, often we get all excited when we're doing, setting up for meta-analysis and we want to jump right to results. But it's absolutely mission critical that you set up the diagnostic tests and the outcomes before you get to the results. And I'm going to show you a couple of things to do. So on the Diagnostic Tests tab, what you'll need to do initially is set up your index and your reference tests. You cannot move forward until you have done both. And so you can see here that I have set up three separate tests that the Reller article, index test the Reller article deals with, and one reference or gold standard test, the cytotoxic assay. Well, when I'm setting these up, when you first start, you'll see this will be blank. And so you'll do add an index test. And here, if you've already got some other index tests entered, you will have drop-down options. And what you would typically want to do is, if your author uses one of these, select this. If not, click Other, and then you can specify what the test was. Now, if you want to add test description and notes, that's great, but one key piece you need is to enter a threshold. This is the diagnostic cutoff above which or below which we would diagnose the disease or the condition, etc., as present. Now, in some diagnostics, so this may be, 18 milligrams per liter in the blood, whatever the author uses. In some cases for diagnostic accuracy, they don't tell you. And that's sometimes because the diagnostic threshold or cutoff is basically hardwired into the test or the machine that is doing the test. If that's the case, if there is no reported threshold or cutoff, just enter NA. Now it's important that you enter something. If I had multiple thresholds, I could add more. But at the very least, I want to have this, and this could be, any specific test that the author uses. And I would do the same thing for the reference test. Again, select from the list to see if it's there. In this case, it already is, so I can select that and not have to do anything. And again, I would want to specify the threshold, what the author uses, and very often authors will use multiple thresholds to generate a receiver operating curve, but in some cases they don't. And if that's the case, then again, I would just enter NA. Once I have all my tests set up, before I jump to my results, I need to now specify my outcomes. So for my outcomes, again, uh, I don't want to specify all the specific tests, sensitivity, specificity, positive and negative predictive values, etc. Don't be that specific. You can usually get away with just setting up diagnostic accuracy. So again, I'm going to show you, I've already got this one set up, but if this was a brand new one, I would go down and I would just use diagnostic accuracy. Now, a key piece here is, and you can see that diagnostic accuracy covers a number of different diagnostic accuracy outcomes, so I don't need to specify them all. Now, one thing that is sometimes confusing in diagnostic accuracy studies is that we actually want to gather the data typically on our index and our reference test at about the same time. So in a sense, it really is more of a cross-sectional design. Even if, say, the authors report that they actually analyzed the specimen, say, weeks or months later. The data are collected typically and ideally at about the same time. So this is going to be my baseline. Very often my time point will just be baseline and my time unit will be NA. So it's not months or years. So this isn't like an intervention where I'm having a measurement at, say, baseline, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year. For diagnostic accuracy, we're pretty much saying at the same time, do the index test and the reference test give me the same result. This isn't always the case, but this is most typically the case. So you would probably just want to put in baseline and NA. But you do want to specify a time point. That's very important. Again, once you've done that, save. Now you can see here that I actually have a second set of outcomes, and this is following discrepant analysis. Your article may not use that, and so again for this, I wouldn't need that. I'm going to delete it. And it was successfully deleted. So this is really all I need. But the key is I've set up my diagnostic test and my outcome before I've got to the results. Now, when I get to this results tab, I select the test, and you can see here that I have already built out the extraction template. And if I need to edit measures, say instead of just number of participants recruited, I want the percent that were participants that were recruited or on which the test was performed. I could select them here. Again, I recommend keeping this top section fairly clean and really extract the meat down here. And you can see that the most important piece is probably going to be my 2 by 2 table, because from these, really these 4 values, I can compute everything else I need. So these are the mission critical pieces. And you can also see that here I've got the GDH C-diff check 60 versus my cytotoxic assay, but Reller also reports other tests, the C-diff quick check versus. And if I need to add more tests, I'll just add columns. And as you can see, I've got 3 tests in this study, therefore I've got 3 columns. So I went through that pretty quick, but I want to remind you of the key pieces. And that is when you set up your diagnostic test tab before results. Now, I know we all want to get to results, but we got to set that diagnostic test tab up first. And when we do that, we're going to specify both the index and the reference test, and then also specify the diagnostic cutoff or threshold levels for these tests, even if it's not applicable. Second, we're going to set up the Outcomes tab before we get to the Results tab. And here, often just using Diagnostic Accuracy Outcomes is usually all you need. Also, you'll want to specify the time point. Now, if the index and the reference tests were gathered, the samples were gathered about the same time, then usually you're only going to have one. It'll be your baseline time point, and you're going to have NA as the time unit. Now, once you've got those 2 tabs set up, finally you can get to the Results tab and select the measures that the authors report. And remember, the 2 by 2 table is probably going to be the most important piece of information, since you get those values and you can calculate anything else you need.